Hi, everyone. Welcome to Happy Lifestyle Online. With us is our very special guest, Alexis Maron. Welcome, Alexis.
Hi, Lisa. Nice to be here.
Thank you. So, Alexis, I think she's a world-renowned therapist. She has a background in RDT, which stands for Registered Trauma Therapy. And she also has credentialing in drug and alcohol treatment. And she has many great things she can share with us today. And so ask your questions. This is on Facebook Live, and this will also stream afterwards. You can get in touch with Alexis directly on her website, alexismaron.com. And I'm Lisa Caprelli. So the first question I have for you, Alexis, is what are 3 top issues you see in relationships? And this could help so many people who are either in them, want to change that, or want to have a good relationship, and they can start good at the beginning.
Yeah, that's such a great and important question. I'm glad we're starting there. I would say probably the very broadest category that I see the most when couples come in to work with me is that they are both complaining of a lack of communication or different styles of communication. So that's a broad stroke that I hear a lot of. And usually what that means is that they're not necessarily in an argument where they're arguing about the content of what they're talking about. It's more about how they're arguing. So they understand what they're saying to each other, but the other person is not appreciative of the tone that's being used or the language that's being used. And ultimately that ends up escalating an argument where if they could just meet in the middle and find a common way to communicate the issues, that they would probably be a lot more calm in the household. Second thing I see a lot is the partners are usually complaining that they feel underappreciated, that the partner that they fell in love with at the very beginning in the first 6 months, they loved and adored and respected them all the time. And now they don't get a thank you for doing the dishes and things like that. So it's, counseling them to find the time to really tell your partner that you still love and appreciate and respect them on a daily basis. And then lastly, I know we're going to get into this more, but I am a huge advocate of the love languages. I think it's real. I think it's true. And oftentimes a couple will come in and say, I don't think my partner knows my love language. Maybe they themselves don't know what their love language is and need to do the work to figure it out. And then it's trying to explain to the partner the best way to show up for their partner in using that specific love language.
So I have to ask you, I'm sure you get asked this a lot, but being a therapist yourself, has all this information and studying human behavior, has that helped you? And by the way, Alexis is engaged. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thanks. Has that helped me? Oh gosh, that's a good question. I think yes. I think having all of this knowledge ultimately helps me believe in what I'm talking about with my partner and how I am going about something. Does it necessarily prevent arguments? No. But does it help me understand how to de-escalate a situation or to have compassion for my partner? Yes. And I think that's probably the biggest takeaway from all of my training is learning how to be incredibly compassionate. So
can you give an example or story? I know you've seen hundreds and hundreds of people in your career, and as well as you doing group counseling. Can you give us a story that stands out to you without obviously saying name of someone who you work with that you saw the relationship change and get better?
Gosh, yeah. It's one of those interesting things because as a therapist, you're often seeing people on their worst day, right? The couples don't come in because they say, we're doing great and everything's fantastic. So a lot of the time, the work that couples do is outside of the office. And when things are going well, I usually never see them again. So that's kind of a testament to the work. They come in when they're having a hard time and then I don't see them. But yes, there was a couple that I was working with at the very beginning of my practice, young couple, and most of their struggles were about trying to find their identity outside of being a married couple because they got married so young. And then it was trying to figure out, well, what do we do about career now? And what do we do about schooling and kids and all that type of stuff? So really the work that I did with them was really trying to treat each of them individually, meeting them where they were, and then helping them figure out, okay, here's my identity today. And how does that work now as the married couple that we are? And they were such a wonderful couple to work with because I did see them over a couple of years, and they do periodically come back and visit me, and I really get to see how they've improved their lives and found out who they are now.
That's wonderful. Yeah. And so, Alexis, I'm going to let you go ahead and share Yes. Facebook Live with your audience.
Mm-hmm.
We practiced earlier. This is part of Facebook Live. And this is Happy Lifestyle Online. And this goes out on Facebook Live. Please ask your questions. This also, this video will stream after the show. It also goes on YouTube Live, and it will be going on podcast format in the new year. Thanks to all the incredible guests we've had this year. You could go to happylifestyleonline.com if you know someone that wants to be on this show, or you want to see some of our past archived shows as well.
Yay.
All right. Thank you. See, it's fun to be live because people can come on in, and again, people will come look at this days, weeks later. It really streams, and it keeps going. And that's the neat thing about social media and Facebook Live. So the next question has to do with alcohol and drugs. It's such a prevalent substance abuse. You shared with me a statistic that you're going to say it better, how prevalent it is in this area, this country.
Oh gosh. Yeah, I think I shared that statistic with you a while ago, and now I'm sure it's even gone up, and I don't want to quote wrong, but let me just put it this way. Probably 1 in 4 people that you know have been touched from addiction in some way, right? So whether that's love and sex addiction, or whether that's drug and alcohol addiction, gambling addiction, it is really rampant in our society. And unfortunately, specifically heroin is just all over the streets and in our local area in Orange County as well. And that is just one of the hardest substances to get off of. Nobody does heroin recreationally. You try it once, you're hooked. And it's just such a sad process to watch. Yet at the same time, working in the addiction treatment centers that I work at, you see stories of success all the time. And that's what we do. We work with group settings, and we try to get people to talk about their story and to find their community. And that's really what's working inside of addiction treatment centers, is finding people who share your story and not feeling alone.
Right. And it affects so many people, whether it's you're the person that has a problem, or you're on the other side having to go through the process of that. And exactly. I know that can be very painful.
Yes. Yeah. Family members, are the secondary victims to it all. It's learning how to support the person who's suffering from the addiction. And at the same time, often there's a wound there where somebody with the addiction has, stolen from them or lied to them or broken trust. And it's very hard to do it alone. So you have to support that family member. But at the same time, you've got your own personal experience as to how you've been affected by it.
So what do you say to people who are maybe ashamed or don't want to admit that this is their life, that, oh no, I didn't realize this is my life. I wake up one day and my partner is a drug addict or an alcoholic. What do you say to that person?
Yeah, good question. I say be kind to yourself and be gentle, because as the partner, we are always looking for the best in the person that we love. We never want to assume the worst. And if you do wake up one day and your partner has the courage to say to you, I think I have an addiction and there's something that I want help with, it's best to meet them right there and say, wow, you know what, you're on the first step to recovery, because it's admitting that there's a problem is the hardest part. And then personally, as the partner, you have to decide if you can be with that person on their journey or not, because you have to be able to make sure you're doing self-care and what you need to do to take care of yourself first. And then as long as the person gets in treatment and follows their program protocol and is consistent with that, then you can support them in their recovery, but you cannot support them in their addiction. That's when it comes down to.
Thank you, Alexis. So as a therapist, do you feel you see equal amount of male, female, or do you feel that is it easier for women to come to you versus male?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I feel that I've been pretty balanced actually in my practice. I've seen a lot of men individually, a lot of women individually. I would say though, on average, if it is a couple that's coming to see me, that it's usually the female that's reached out to me to make the initial appointment. And I do often get met with a lot of resistance from the male counterpart, thinking we don't need therapy, we're not broken. There's a lot of stigma that comes around couples counseling, usually from the man. Like I said, they feel like we're not broken, we're not crazy, there's nothing wrong with us. And it's really sort of destigmatizing that you don't have to come to therapy when there's something broken. You come to learn new new tools and new skills. And that's important to hold on to.
And I think what's important for relationships, for people to kind of, if they can, fix when communication goes awry, is that it really, when they sit with someone like you, a therapist, and who's a professional, who's trained, and you work with so many people, is it really makes them be vulnerable if they want to be, take responsibility, take a look at what's been going on versus shifting the blame.
Yes. Yes. That's a good point. Yeah. It's just coming in and knowing that in front of a therapist, you're in a very non-judgmental space, and you have a little bit, something happens ideally when you get in the room where you feel like, I can say things here that I can't say on my couch at home. It doesn't feel safe to say that there. And that's truly because, as the therapist, we're there to be a mediator, to sort of stop things when they escalate, to be able to interpret for someone, well, perhaps your partner is trying to say this, or perhaps this person is trying to communicate this, because we can hear it and see it with unbiased eyes and ears. And so we know how to sort of break down what it is that possibly you're trying to communicate.
And you're really teaching people a different way to communicate. Oftentimes, we're not, as parents, I being a mom myself, we're not given a manual. This is how you do it. Much less, this is how you do it when you one day have a partner.
Mm-hmm. Right. And even if there was a manual, we'd probably lose it along the way, because I know I've lost all of the manuals I've ever owned. So then you kind of wing it anyways.
And one of the things I've learned, that I'm sure you've learned more on a greater scale, is that we are all different. We all have different personalities. Mm. And so therefore your perspective of the world, and then you meet up someone else's perspective of the world. And you have to look at things through their eyes sometimes. Exactly.
You have to try to have empathy. And I think that's where a lot of people get confused and actually don't know the difference in the definition between sympathy and empathy. Sympathy is, I can feel for you. Lisa, I don't have any kids, and so I can't empathize with you because I'm not a mom, but I can sympathize that it must be very challenging to be able to be a working mom, to have kids, to balance everything, right? So sympathy is, I can feel for you. Empathy is, I feel with you. I've had a similar experience. And so to try to sit in your other's partner's shoes and to have some type of empathy is one of those things that will really help you communicate so much better.
So let's talk about the 5 love languages and teach us about that.
Yes. Okay. So 5 love languages. What I like to say is basically, like we've been talking about, communication styles.
Hello.
2 partners come in and...
Oh, no. Did I lose Alexis?
Oh, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Oh my gosh. Okay. If you... Let's see. Are we live?
It says so.
Those of you watching. I think the software is timed out, but I'm going to stay on here for those of you watching. We're talking with Alexis Maron. Her website is alexismaron.com. I'm going to call her up. We're going to come back.